Hello, BookTube. This is my monthly wrap up for August. August was a really lovely reading month. I didn't get to as many books as I normally do, but I I read some big ones this month. But anyway, let's get started. So, what did I first read? I read a two-volume book about John Curtin during World War II, and it was iconic. John Curtin's one of the great prime ministers I've had in Australia, and just how he maneuvered through World War II and very much put Australia first in a lot of subtle ways. Him and his letters to Churchill were very interesting, and also John Curtin's War also done a really great job at really showing you Curtin as a person and all of the vulnerability and just him as a person. It was really interesting to see that dynamics of him as a figure and him as a person. And it's sad that he never got to see the end of World War II or see his legacy and his impact in this country. But anyway, so that was like, I read that. And then I read, because I was like, I need to do a Billy Hughes, because Billy Hughes is so iconic. And I was shocked with how little books there are about Billy Hughes. He was a prime minister during World War One. He wasn't that popular, but he was extremely popular with the soldiers. And I done Billy Hughes, Prime Minister and Controversial like history by Arian Hughes, and it was fine. It was only like 200 pages, and it was more about Hughes's personal life than his time in office, and again his long career, because he's one of the only people to serve over 50 years in Parliament. He was pushing 80 by the time World War II came along, but it was fine really. It wasn't amazing. I think it's just because I just want a massive 800 page, 700 page biography of Billy Hughes. That's manifesting and putting it out there into the world for someone to write it. But yeah, so I read those two. Just getting some non-fiction in there. I did finish Alexander Dumas, the Three Musketeers series. I done 10 years later that three volume split. They weren't my favorite, if I'm being honest. Even The Man in the Iron Mask, I thought was a bit of a letdown. I think because compared to the first two books in the series, The Three Musketeers and 20 Years Later, I feel like the 10 Years Later volumes get really bogged down by history, and it's a way that I've never seen Dumas really stumble with. Normally he's really great at it, but the Musketeers themselves, I feel like it just really pushed, back to being minor characters. And even in The Man in the Iron Mask, they're not as um, relevant to the story. And I get that because it's a historical fiction, but you're going there for the Three Musketeers and all their sword fights and all that. But I'm glad that Dumas did stop after The Man in the Iron Mask, especially the death of one of the main musketeers. Not going to spoil. I thought that was actually really done well. But outside of that, I thought they were really good, and I'll probably in a couple of years reread them because, or at least do The Three Musketeers and 20 Years Later, because those two are genuinely amazing adventure stories. But 10 Years Later was a bit of a letdown for me. I didn't find it as great to be um, as the first two books, or even any of the Dumas I've read. But yeah, so I'm glad I've read that, to be honest. And then I read my final Dickens novel. I have officially read all of Dickens. I finished The Mystery of Edwin Drood, and my god, I actually really liked it. I know, I'm surprised. Who thought that Our Mutual Friend and Mystery of Edwin Drood would be some of my favorite Dickens books, and then he'd die. um, but Mystery of Edwin Drood, it's like a mystery, like a whodunit mystery, with the death around Edward Drood, and it's a bit more seedy. I love how it's set like opium dens, and it's a lot more like gritty, I think, compared to a lot of Dickens's other novels. But I think it ended in a very interesting place because it never got finished, and we don't have any notes. It's not like a Wives and Daughters by Gaskell where we know where she was ending and she had notes and all that. With Edwin Drood, we have no clue, and I feel like that's kind of why I like it so much, is that it wasn't ruined by Dickens. I mean, his endings normally can be a bit hit and miss for me, but The Mystery of Edwin Drood, I know it's maybe not technically a part of his novels, like because it's unfinished, but I thought it could have it this was something special. If I'm being a bit honest, I would put this above the majority of Dickens's novels. So I know that's a bit controversial, but I actually really like The Mystery of Edwin Drood. And then, so those were the main stuff I got to before a titanic shift in my reading happened. I have been on a massive Nora Roberts binge. I cannot stop myself. It's like a hurricane in my life. I've brought so many of her books recently. It's actually insane. I think I have like nearly 25 of her books on my bedside table. Like, it is getting insane. And who knows when it's going to stop. But anyway, what did I read? I read The Villa. This was like a winery, like family generations, like very soap opera, like daytime TV. And it just scratched an itch. There was like a murder subplot going on in the background. But there was two couples. There was an older couple and then the main younger couple. And it was set just in a winery and like family ties and connections, and I was just swept away. Speaking of swept away, I was also swept away by The Reef. And this is Nora's, like, one of her 90s one. It's like a hidden treasure marine biologist romance. And it scratched an itch. I don't know what to say. Nora was on fire. I loved it so much. Nora's the main leading man in this is a bit more like alpha douchey in that sense because it is a bit of an older romance, so he's not going to be as nice, but I think you get used to it after a while. But I love The Reef. I obsessed. Nora writing sea adventure like romances. Take my money, please. Take my money. And then I read The Search by Nora Roberts, and this is a straight up amazing mystery murder thriller by her. It's not really a mystery, but it's iconic. The leading heroine's like a dog trainer. The romance is really cute. The main guy, the leading man, makes furniture, and it's really weird and it's really cool. While also going on is a murderer coming back for revenge, and it's iconic, and it is not one of my favorite Nora Roberts. I still think I prefer like The Obsession or Whiskey Beach over The Search, because I feel like you can kind of feel its length midway through. I think the pacing gets a bit off midway, but outside of that little speed bump, this is a great Nora Roberts book, and I'm glad I actually have a hardcover of it. And then the last book I read for August is a letdown. I read Mind Games by Nora again, and Mind Games came out last year, and I have it in a lovely hardcover, so I'm like, I can't get rid of it because it's so pretty. But Mind Games is like this girlie when she was younger. She was staying with her nan, and she had like visions of her parents being brutally murdered by this murderer, and it turns out that she has like telekinesis or whatever it's called powers with the killer who's now escaped and is coming for her. And it was so boring. It didn't do much for me. I think Nora trying to do like a paranormal edge just doesn't work for me as much. I feel like when it's just not as grounded, and I feel like the romance wasn't nowhere near as strong as even The Search, and it was a real letdown for me. But again, I will keep trying Nora when she does a paranormal edge because I want to like one of them. So I do have also Inheritance to try as well, and that's like a haunted like mansion type of book right there. But yeah, Mind Games for me was just a complete letdown. And yeah, so that's not the best way to end my reading month. But yeah, so I'm still currently in my Nora binge. I don't know what I'm going to do next. But yeah, that was what I read for August. Let me know what you thought about these books in the comments below. And what did you read in August? And yeah, tell me about that. And yeah, thank you so much for watching BookTube, and I will see you next time.